All right. Welcome to this episode of Semi-Sages of the Pages.
Woo!
This is Molly.
I'm Teresa.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Morgan.
All right, today we're going to kick it off. Hopefully you've heard us talk about it before. We're going to talk about it again because we're so excited for the upcoming Culture Club. That's right, upcoming, we have our first Mock 1 happening on September 7th. We're going to talk about magical realism. We're going to talk about the book Midnight's Children. And then we're going to dive into first page critiques from some of you lovely listeners. Then, of course, we are going to have our full launch on October 5th, where we're going to talk about the movie Hocus Pocus. Sarah, what are you most excited about for the upcoming Culture Club launch?
Hocus Pocus and Kid from the 90s, of course I have to be. I'm really excited to get to share craft and genre exchanges with our listeners because that's really something that we've always wanted to do, and it takes us to a whole different page because we want to involve you, and we will also be growing as authors as a result of these critiques as well.
So where can they find out how to do this? How to submit to us?
They can go.
Too much caffeine.
So much caffeine. You guys have no idea how much we've had today. So they can go to our website, semisagesofthepages.com, where there is a form with all the rules and regulations and terms. Of course, it's not that complicated, but just go on over there, check out the form, see if this feels right for you, which we really hope it will. This is going to be anonymous critiquing because we want to ensure that this is a safe and open community. We are very keen to doing this right. So head on over there and check it out.
And something really that we want to emphasize in turning the page into craft is this emphasis. And when we read you guys' stuff and we're doing critique, we are going to focus on a critique method called Even Better If. And in this next section of our podcast, our craft section, we wanted to dive into a little bit of what Even Better If means, what growth mindset is, and what you can expect moving forward in our culture episodes. So
before we do that, I want to talk about the importance of getting critique. And this was when I wrote my first novel at all of 12. It was not very good at all. This was something that I didn't know about, that you wanted to go to people and be like, hey, can I get some honest critique? And at 12, you know what I wanted them to tell me?
You're great, keep going.
Yeah, this is the best thing I've ever read. Oh my God. But that's not actually helpful, and it doesn't actually help you become better as an author. So
with one exception, hopefully, if you're a really, really fresh author, it gets you to write more.
It does, yes. So very important. Yes, at age 12, yes, please. But as you get older, and that's kind of our secret wish. I think a lot of times when we put our work out there, our secret wish is that people will say, "This is the most amazing thing I've ever read in my entire life, and it is perfect and amazing, and it needs no changes." It doesn't work that way.
And you are also the most beautiful woman who's ever lived.
Really? Can I please give you $1 million billion? Yes, please.
Oh, I love this already. Not unfortunately, but the reality is nothing is ever perfect.
Right.
Nothing that you write will ever be perfect. It can't be perfect.
Especially drafts. There is no perfect first draft. From Stephen King to Tolkien, there is no perfect first draft. And Tolkien was actually notorious for constantly changing and editing Lord of the Rings.
7 years, right? For one book, 7 years.
Well, and he kept changing it after.
Yes.
He published it and then
I think it was
rechanged
something
it.
like 40 times.
Yeah.
And it was an insane number. So coming back to the importance of critiquing and good, healthy, positive critiquing, we want to do the Even Better If style. So we're not going to sit there and bash the heck out of it. We want to ensure that you grow as an author, so we will be giving you positive, constructive feedback. But again, with our our Culture Club, we want to ensure that you're growing, but in a healthy way. So when we're reading the submissions, they will be anonymous. Cannot emphasize that enough.
And if you're a little farther, if you're not a 12-year-old who wants everybody to tell you that your work is
amazing. You might be at the place where you understand that first pages are infuriatingly difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And you might
Oh,
be
yeah.
at the place where you're like, you've queried and you have even agents telling you, this is wonderful, good luck, but they're not offering representation. Or, you have some people saying this is the best thing I've ever read. And then you have other people who just aren't connecting with it. And the thing about a first page is it has to do so much work. You're setting, theme, characterization, and most importantly, in my opinion, reader buy-in. And you have to all do this in a show versus tell, mindset where you welcome the reader in, with relatable connections that make them excited about turning the page. And with all the options we have to read today, that's becoming more difficult. Readers are less patient, agents are less patient, and so there's a lot of pressure on a first page. So when we designed this, we wanted to celebrate first pages, bring fresh ideas to first pages, and kind of review different strategies that can take our good first pages and make them great, or give choices. Say, oh, this is already really good, but what about this? What about this? What about that?
Mhm.
With not the assumption that you will take it, but just it will give the audience and hopefully the writer who submits to us more ideas to work with so that they increase their craft. And not only does the writing itself become better as we work on possibilities and potentiality and open doors of thought, but even more important, the author starts to see different strategies to craft first pages for other work as they move on.
And something I'm excited about, one thing I love about first pages is the possibility.
Yeah.
You read a first page and you're like, where is this story going to go? And I think it's really important for an author to know where their reader thinks the story might go.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to read these and be like, all right, I've read this first page. I think this is like, it's been anonymized. Like, I don't know who's written it. Maybe I know the genre, maybe I don't. I don't know the synopsis of the book. What do I think is going to happen? Do I think it's going to be a love story? Do I think it's going to be happily ever after? Do I think the dog's going to die? I love kind of making those predictions. And as an author, I love when people do that for me as well. Because sometimes you're like, okay, cool. I've already got some foreshadowing. I've already got them thinking about the right things. Or it makes you say, oh, well, I didn't want that question in their head. They should not be thinking about that. That is not something, sometimes you don't think it's a big deal. And then you realize, oops, I just need to draw their attention away from that and to where I want their attention to be. Right. So the even better if strategy, as we were talking about it, just so you get an idea, really that focuses on finding something that you think is working, that you think the author, maybe someone wants to do, and then talk about how it could even be better. So, for example, I could, read something from Teresa, and I could say, Teresa, I love this imagery that you have in this field of flowers. I love the color. I love how present you are in this moment. I would have, an even better if I would have extra loved if maybe there were more senses involved. Because, it's a field of flowers. Maybe it smells really lovely. Maybe, she's touching the flowers or something like that. I would really love just another sense in here I think would really ground me in this moment. To make this scene even better and even more sensory for me. Things like that are what we're talking about. We're going to turn the page and we're going to talk about industry. And there's actually two things we wanted to talk about in industry. The first one is we mentioned Culture Club is upcoming, and our first one is going to be Midnight's Children.
Yeah, the first novel we selected was by famous/infamous author Salman Rushdie. And the reason we chose that book is twofold. One, I think magical realism is a genre that can teach us a lot as far as craft goes and the ability to meld critique and imagination and bring in the presentness of the human spirit. But especially at a time like this when Salman Rushdie has recently been stabbed and has had serious side effects from his attack and is in the hospital currently.
Because I don't know a lot of details, what happened?
So in August of 2022, which is when we're recording this, Salman Rushdie was, who I'm sure our esteemed audience knows, is the author of the Satanic Verses, which was so controversial that he's had death threats for years, and the Iranian government actually put a hit on him basically and has been threatening him, but he's gone throughout the Western world and gives, continued writing and giving speeches on the importance of freedom of speech and embracing, controversial issues in thought. And he's a brilliant, brilliant writer. And he went to give a speech, right, a lecture to, I believe it was a university, and he was attacked by a 24-year-old radical, who I don't know much about, but I know that he stabbed him multiple times while he was on stage. And the recent reports that I read said he lost his eye for sure, his major damage to his liver, as well as several other, injuries, and his arm, I think.
The nerves in his arm were severed.
Oh, the nerves oh my goodness, I wonder if that's his writing hand. I mean, I'm sure he types with both, but wow. And so there's just a lot of, I just think now is a good time, especially considering the genre that he writes, to honor him by reading his work and getting to know more about, how just basic language, just telling a story can provoke an attack, right? Can provoke people to such violence in a world where right now language seems to stir people. I mean, I guess it's true throughout history, but specifically with his attack, it just seems interesting as well as terrifying, how much the word can incite unexpected consequences, I would say. And I mean, I thought, back in the day, I was always worried about Salman Rushdie's life. But by 2022, to be honest, I quit worrying about it.
Sure.
That was a worry of the 90s, you know?
Mm-hmm. He had death threats for so long.
Right.
And nothing came of it.
And then 2022 hits, and now we're facing this. And so I hope you'll join us at Culture Club. Even if you don't have an opportunity to read the book, we'll summarize it. We'll give spoiler alerts. And then we'll discuss, what made him famous, and as well as, what would cause people to have such strong feelings against him.
Thank you, Morgan, for giving us a lot of that background. I'm really excited. I haven't read this book before. Again, Midnight's Children. But I'm excited to learn more and find out more and, have my worldview expanded. Sometimes you never know whether you're going to like or not like or agree or don't agree with certain things. But I think it's important to embrace different ideas and different mindsets and find out more.
And that's the big thing about our Culture Club as well. Now, we're not doing reviews of the books. That's not the point of it. It's to analyze the literature and the movies, the topics, the stories, the people, and the characters within them. Why has these stories resonated for so long? How has this book generated so much controversy?
And attention.
So that's the core of our Culture Club, is so that we can learn as authors, okay, I really want to take this away from that, or oh no, not this one so much, so that we grow as well.
Which links to the even better if. We found out as this came up in the news that it was kind of a hole for all of us that we hadn't even read this author before.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so here is this highly politically relevant person who's relevant only because of his literature and how he uses his characters in literature, and none of us had read his work. So we thought that was kind of an interesting opportunity for us to learn why people are so interested in him and how he stirred such emotion among his readers, positive and negative.
We also kind of want, this is our industry section. I mentioned we had two things to talk about. This was one. The second one, I'm going to let either Teresa or Sarah take off and start explaining. It is, get ready, totally different thought.
We're going to shift gears.
We're
turning a page.
We're turning the page, staying on the same industry topic, but just completely different.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk about something, a new policy put out by Barnes & Noble.
So, and this is interesting because it's one of those gray policies where they're not going to put it in writing and there's not going to be an official notification about it, but Barnes & Noble basically is no longer stocking hardback books of debut authors, and in general, not very many hardback books either. And there's been a lot of frustration and a lot of uproar in the industry about this. But from Sarah's and my perspective as publishers, we kind of get where Barnes & Noble's coming from, because hardback books are really expensive.
And it's not just the printing aspect that's expensive. There's a lot more that goes into them creatively. A lot of the hardbacks, they've got a wraparound cover. It's not just the hardback, the heavier stock that's needed to produce the actual cover. You have the cover that attaches the book. So that's the front, the spine, the back. Then you have the paper wrap, the dust jacket that goes around it. So that's multiple elements to be considered, to be crafted. There's more copy that needs to be generated as well. So a lot more time, energy, and creative resources go into generating a hardback.
Which makes them more expensive, which then means that if if Barnes & Noble are buying these books with the hope of selling them, and then they have to return them, they're taking a loss on this. The publishing industry and the book buying industry, bookstores, they're right on the line of being profitable, and they're constantly fighting against Amazon.
Yeah, and something else here I think that is important. If you don't know, at least in the U.S., I'm not familiar with some of the other countries in the publishing, what happens here is when your book gets published, initially it's published in hardback, and you don't get paperback unless you're indie or some other, but traditional publishing, you don't get paperback for 6-9 months a year. So the only way to buy that person's book at first is hardcover. So if you are especially a mid-lister or a debut author, now your book's published, but people can't go into Barnes & Noble and buy it for another year or more, potentially. So this could have a major impact on people's sales. So there's a couple things, right? This could have a major impact on people's sales because their book isn't stocked. Maybe their book can still be bought online and stuff like that. But for those who walk into a bookstore and like to browse, they like if you like this, read this. They want that display of new books. They want, whatever Christmas shopping, right? At, a few weeks before Christmas, you walk into Barnes & Noble. Those books will not be there now. The only books that will be there are from quote unquote established authors that Barnes & Noble think that they can already sell. And then the other dangerous part of this is gatekeeping. Right? Who do they think they can already sell from?
Right.
Another thing that's really interesting about this, and I'll be curious to see how this plays out, is that Barnes & Noble has been trying to produce more indie-related books, or indie books. They've had indie sections. They've had local author sections. So will this end up having a different effect than they're anticipating if they're not selling those mid-level or those debut authors?
Well, and that's an interesting thing, because especially a debut, even a mid-level author, your first year the book is published, that's when it's going to sell the most. Mm-hmm. So it's been a year. The book is no longer out. It's, maybe gone a little bit cold. Is Barnes & Noble now at that point going to be like, oh, cool, let's go ahead and stock this paperback?
Yeah, or at that point, they're like, why would I stock the paperback? Nobody bought this.
Yeah, it's been out for a year now. Nobody bought it. And the author and the publisher are like, well, yeah, because you didn't stock it.
Yeah, it's a cyclical thing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, from a business perspective, I kind of get it.
I get the hardback.
Yes.
I definitely get the hardback because that is extremely expensive, and we know that.
Oh yeah.
Like Teresa was saying, we've considered doing hardbacks for ours, and we've kind of decided no for the time being because we just don't make financial sense for us currently. I don't really see the debut author aspect because of the path it takes to get onto the shelves at Barnes & Noble. Means you've proven yourself worthy to be on the shelves at Barnes & Noble. You didn't just wander off the street with something you printed in your garage. You have been vetted. They vet their authors that they put on the shelves. They make sure there's a following. They make sure that there's a readership there. They make sure that there's an audience there. So if you have a debut author or any kind of book appearing on a shelf at Barnes & Noble, it means they have done their research into you to say that they believe that you will sell there. So if you cut that debut author out, that's lost revenue. Potentially.
Theoretically.
Yes.
You don't know. Or maybe
Yeah.
those people who walk in to buy a book, right? Maybe they would have bought, they're going to buy the same number of books whether it's a debut author's book or not.
Right.
You know what's interesting, though? So that was the Billie Eilish mistake. So a couple months ago, Billie Eilish had her book released, which was a memoir, and they bought millions of them,
Yep.
millions of copies, not just Barnes & Noble. The publishers ordered millions of copies, and hardly any sold. Because even though Billie Eilish is the latest, greatest thing since sliced bread, we all are familiar with her. We all at least know her name if we haven't heard her songs at some point. I mean, they're everywhere. Her book didn't sell. So it's a gamble, really. It really is a gamble in the book selling industry.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's so dang hard. And that's why you see so many small presses fail. That's why you see so many small bookstores fail. So, we're not pointing the finger at Barnes & Noble and saying, like, what are you doing? Or, accusing them of anything. It's just a fascinating thing that's currently happening within the industry today.
Yeah. And it's a hard one because you definitely understand for authors, especially authors who maybe used to have their book there in Barnes & Noble, and now they're publishing the third or fourth book, and now they're finding out their third or fourth book won't be on shelves. Or they're a debut author who is excited to tell their family, go check Barnes & Noble, you can buy my book. Now they won't be able to tell their family that, potentially. And that lost revenue, that's going to hurt a lot of people. And I completely understand that, and that's really hard. And how do they implement this policy? How do they decide which, authors they will carry those those hardback books of? And all that kind of stuff is really hard, but you also have to understand that, like, whether it's agents or publishers or editors or Barnes & Noble or even Amazon, they are businesses and they have to make money and they have to make decisions that they think are going to maximize the money that they make. Whether we like their decision or not, whether we think their decision is ethical or not, is different. But that's what they're doing. They do things to make money.
Now, are they going to be carrying them online? The hardbacks?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a good distinction to make as well. It's just that you can't go into the store to pick up the hardback on the shelf.
Yep, you can just still order it on the website.
So it's print on demand, basically.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if you're looking to go indie but you're not really sure how that works, if your book is printed through Ingram Spark or listed on indieBound.com.org. Thank you. Then the Barnes & Nobles will be able to pick you up. If you publish exclusively through Amazon, they will not.
Correct.
KDP.
Yeah, it's a very interesting scenario. We're in a very interesting industry here.
But really is fascinating.
Positive note is that reading is going up. And it has been continuing to go up since 2020. Thank you, pandemic, for shutting us all inside and
reminding us we love to read.
Reminding us that books are amazing.
And for me, my even better if for this situation was publishing industry. Wouldn't it be even better if instead of doing hardbacks first, they did paperbacks first?
Yes.
Or they made hardbacks collector's editions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which they do. They do collector's editions all the time.
Yeah.
Once a book is successful.
It's very successful. Yeah.
Right. They'll release collections, different versions. Oh, this is the Amazon exclusive, or this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive version. Blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Right. But let's start with the paperback. Start where it's more accessible for people.
Mm-hmm.
As a teenager, I read a ton, and I loved books, and I loved getting books. But even then, inflation, it was cheaper when I was a teenager, right? But even then, I'd go in and be like, okay, I have $20. What will that get me?
Right?
Yeah.
And I'd have to wait a year, or go to the library, and then wait on the waiting list for the book you want to read. Where if it starts in paper, like in paperback, it's all paper. If it starts in paperback, suddenly it's more accessible to everyone, and you can build that audience faster, potentially.
You know what's funny? You hit an interesting point in there about going to the library. Because most library books are recommended to be hardback because they go through hand to hand to hand to hand. They're hardier. And so it would be interesting to see, and this is a very metaphysical kind of thing. It would be interesting to see would generate hardbacks just for library consumption, because libraries pay differently in the industry than paperback, something I think we learned within the last year. Very interesting thing. So that's kind of an interesting niche to have, like, an exclusive to library hardbacks.
I like it.
Some food for thought.
Do you think people would steal library books?
They already steal library books.
It's so sad. Turning the page to what's on your page, where we discuss what's happening in our community, we wanted to highlight a couple of our community members who have done a recent writing competition, the NYC Midnight Pieces. And so congratulations to you guys. You guys did really well. I understand also, placing in like top 10, top 20 on a couple of the things. So great job to anyone who participated. Every time you submit something, that is commendable and worthy. And if you want to submit more, you want more honest feedback on what your first pages are like. Oh wait, sorry.
No. I thought you were passing the baton.
I was, and it was an awkward pause.
You should go to www.semisagesofthepages.com to submit your first 250-ish words for us to go ahead and critique live.
Specifically, our first few episodes, our genres that we're going to be looking for is, we've mentioned it, magical realism on September 7th. Then afterwards, September 21st, also not live, but will be about language in sci-fi and world building. So if you think you have a piece that kind of fits that genre, feel free to start sending us that. And then on October 5th, our live show, our first hard launch where you can join us on YouTube. We're going to be doing Hocus Pocus and then feedback on your pieces live. And that is, if you have horror, monster, any of that type of genre that you think fits with that, go ahead and send us your stories. And if we don't pick you, we might pick you on a later episode.
I like it.
Awesome.
Nice
So
job.
just to recap, I think you said we'd really love magical realism submissions. That episode is September 7th, so they need to be submitted before September 7th to the website. And then if they have horror or fantasy, anything that fits Hocus
You're right.
Hocus Pocus, right? They need to submit that before when?
Before August 5th. October 5th.
Before October 5th. Okay,
October
great.
5th.
So we're looking for submissions predominantly right now in magical realism and horror/fantasy.
Molly just wants you all to create a time machine, go back in time.
There you
and
go.
Submit
Yeah.
it.
There we go.
Yeah. By
But
August 5th.
I feel like our audience can do that.
I
They're
think
good.
so. They're geniuses.
And since they can do that, they should give us 5 stars and like us and do all that on the social media
well,
too,
of
right?
course, always.
Always. Thank you for tuning in, and have a lovely day.